scientists found a Deathworlder in Cryosleep, instantly regret waking them up. In the vastness of space, there are planets where life barely survives. Worlds so dangerous and harsh that surviving there feels impossible. These places are called death worlds, places where everything is a challenge. On one such planet, forgotten by time, something unusual has been hidden, buried under layers of ash and rock for centuries. Aboard the research vessel Calypso, a group of scientists floats above this deadly world. The planet below is violent, with storms of acid rain and land that shakes constantly. The air itself is poisonous. To most people, this would seem like the end of the line. But for these researchers, the planet holds clues to something important. What starts as a normal mission soon changes. As the team studies the surface, their drones find something unexpected. Beneath the ground lies a structure, old and broken, but still giving off energy. Inside this structure, they find something even more surprising, a cryopod. It's perfectly sealed and still running after countless years. The cryopod holds a person who seems human. Even more shocking, this person has been frozen in time, alive but asleep. The crew reacts in different ways. Dr. Kexthar, the lead scientist, sees it as a rare chance to learn more. He believes the pod could hold information that changes everything. Lieutenant Eleanor Briggs, the human xenobiologist, feels unsure. She can't shake the sense that they are taking a big risk. Varen, the ship's engineer, strongly warns against opening it. He believes the pod might have been sealed for a reason. Mila Ortiz, the youngest member of the team, listens carefully, unsure of what to think. The scans show strange results. The person inside the pod isn't like any human they've seen before. Their body seems built to survive extreme conditions, bones that can handle strong forces, lungs that can filter poison, and systems designed to handle the toughest environments. The pod itself is just as strange. It's far beyond anything the team has ever seen. And the energy coming from it isn't just keeping the person alive. It's doing something else, something they don't fully understand. Dr. Kexthar pushes forward, convinced it's worth the risk. Viren strongly objects, but his concerns are set aside. After some debate, the team agrees to activate the pod. The process begins. Machines hum softly as the cryopod starts to open. Cold mist spills out, filling the room as the pod unlocks. Everyone watches, holding their breath, as the figure inside slowly becomes clear. It's a human, motionless, yet somehow alive. Suddenly, the ship starts to shake. The lights flicker. An alarm blares. Strange energy pulses through the systems, and something feels wrong. The person in the pod stirs, their fingers twitching, their chest rising with the first breath of life in centuries. In that moment, the crew realizes they may have made a mistake. Who is this person? Why were they kept here, frozen and hidden? And most importantly, what happens next? The room is silent as the figure in the cryopod slowly awakens. The scientists stand frozen, unsure of what to expect. The ship's lights flicker again, and the low hum of systems struggling to stabilize fills the air. The figure's eyes open, sharp, focused, and unnervingly aware. Lieutenant Eleanor Briggs steps forward cautiously. "Can you hear me?" she asks. The figure blinks, their gaze sweeping across the room. They sit up slowly, their movements deliberate, as if every action is calculated. "Where am I?" the figure asks, their voice hoarse but steady. Dr. Kexthar steps in, his excitement barely contained. "You're aboard the research vessel Calypso. We found your cryopod buried beneath the surface of a planet classified as a death world. You've been in stasis for, well, a very long time." The figure looks at the team, their expression unreadable. "And you decided to wake me?" they ask bluntly. The question hangs in the air, making everyone uneasy. Dr. Kexthar explains that their mission is to study the planet and its artifacts. Finding a living human in such a place is a discovery they couldn't ignore. The figure doesn't respond immediately. Instead, they swing their legs over the edge of the pod, standing unsteadily. Despite their weakened state, there's something about their presence that commands attention. The figure introduces themselves as Commander Adrian Cross. They were part of a mission centuries ago to contain a threat on this planet. When asked about the threat, Cross only says, "It's something you shouldn't have disturbed." The team exchanges nervous glances. Viren, still wary, asks why Cross was in stasis. Cross replies, "Because that was the safest option. For me, and for the galaxy." The cryptic response raises even more questions. Dr. Kexthar is eager to learn more, but Eleanor senses that Cross isn't ready to share everything yet. Mila suggests running medical scans on Cross to ensure they're stable after centuries in stasis. Cross agrees, though reluctantly. As the scans begin, the team observes Cross's physiology in detail. The results are startling. Cross's body is unlike any human they've seen before. Denser bones, highly efficient organs, and neural activity far beyond standard levels. Even in their weakened state, their vitals suggest extraordinary adaptability. "This is incredible," Dr. Kexthar says, staring at the data. "Your body is built to survive conditions no human should endure." "How is this possible?" Cross looks at him coldly. "You adapt or you die. That's how humanity survived on Earth, and on planets like this one." The scans also reveal something alarming. Traces of a strange energy signature embedded in Cross's body. It's the same energy that was coming from the cryopod. Viren voices his concern, suggesting that the energy might be linked to whatever threat Cross mentioned earlier. Dr. Kexthar brushes off the warning, eager to focus on the scientific potential of Cross's unique physiology. Meanwhile, Mila notices that the ship's systems are behaving oddly. The strange energy from the pod has started to interfere with the vessel's power supply. Lights flicker more frequently, and the communication array fails entirely. She points this out to Viren, who begins running diagnostics. As tensions rise, Cross observes the team's interactions carefully. They seem unimpressed by the scientists' excitement and curiosity, focusing instead on their cautious teammate, Viren. "You're the only one who understands what you've done," Cross says to him. "And it might already be too late." Viren demands an explanation. Cross hesitates, but eventually relents. "This planet was quarantined. The ruins you found weren't left behind by a lost civilization. They were a prison for something alive." The revelation shocks the team. Dr. Kexthar argues that the ruins were lifeless and ancient, showing no signs of activity. Cross responds grimly, "That's because it sleeps, just as I did. But the energy from my pod, it might have been enough to wake it." Eleanor asks what exactly it is. Cross describes a parasite unlike anything known in the galaxy, an organism that consumes and mimics its host, organic or mechanical. It spreads rapidly, overwhelming entire ecosystems. Cross explains that their mission centuries ago was to eliminate the threat, but when that failed, the only option left was containment. The team's unease grows. Dr. Kexthar still clings to the possibility that Cross might be mistaken, but Viren and Eleanor aren't so sure. Mila voices her concerns as well, pointing out the worsening issues with the ship systems. The strange energy from the pod seems to be affecting more than just the power grid. As the group debates their next steps, a sudden alarm interrupts them. The ship's sensors detect movement near the ruins on the planet's surface. The drones left behind during the excavation send back distorted footage of something shifting in the shadows. It's fast, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably alive. Cross's expression hardens. "It's awake?" Dr. Kexthar tries to regain control of the situation, suggesting that they analyze the data before jumping to conclusions. But Cross steps forward, his voice firm. "You don't have time to analyze anything. If it's loose, your only option is to destroy it." Eleanor asks how they're supposed to destroy something like that. Cross replies, "With my help." But you're going to have to trust me. The room falls silent. The team is left with a choice. Heed Cross's warnings or continue down the path of discovery and risk unleashing something they can't control. The stakes have never been higher, and every decision from here on will determine their survival, and possibly the survival of the galaxy. The ship is in chaos. Lights flicker, alarms blare, and strange energy waves disrupt the systems. The footage from the drones shows movement near the ruins, blurred, quick, and unsettling. The team gathers in the control room, staring at the screens. It's impossible, Dr. Kexthar mutters. The ruins were empty. Nothing could have survived down there. Commander Cross stands at the edge of the room, arms crossed, his face set like stone. You didn't just wake me. You woke it too. The tension thickens. Viren tries to stabilize the ship's failing systems, muttering under his breath about the energy disrupting everything. Mila scans the sensor data, trying to get a clearer picture of what's happening on the planet below. What she finds sends a chill through the room. There's something moving toward the excavation site, she says. It's not just one thing, it's multiple signatures. Dozens, maybe more. Eleanor steps forward, trying to steady the group. If this is the parasite you mentioned, Commander, what exactly are we dealing with? Cross turns to her, his voice calm but firm. It's an organism that consumes and imitates. It can adapt to anything, organic or mechanical. It's fast, smart, and impossible to predict. Once it spreads, there's no stopping it. Dr. Kexthar refuses to believe it. That's ridiculous. You expect us to believe some ancient creature can adapt to technology and biology alike. We have protocols. We have defenses. Cross stares at him. Not against this. It doesn't follow rules. It learns, it spreads, and it doesn't stop until everything is gone. Viren slams his hand on the console. The ship is already compromised. Whatever energy was keeping you contained is what's destabilizing our systems now. And if that thing can manipulate technology, like you say, his voice trails off, the implications sinking in. It'll come for us. Cross finishes. The room falls silent. Mila breaks the stillness. If it's spreading, we can't stay here. We have to get off this planet. Cross shakes his head. If you leave, it will follow. That's why the planet was quarantined. To keep it trapped here. If it gets off-world, it'll infest every system it touches. Dr. Kexthar tries to take control of the situation. Let's not panic. We have time to analyze this. We can gather more data and figure out how to contain it. Cross steps closer, his presence suddenly more intimidating. You don't contain it. You destroy it. The longer you wait, the worse it gets. Eleanor tries to mediate. Commander, what do you suggest? How do we stop it? Cross outlines a grim plan. The team must use the ship's weapons to destroy the excavation site and everything within it, including any remaining parts of the ruins. He explains that the energy signature from his pod can be weaponized, but doing so will put the ship's entire power supply at risk. It's not a choice, Cross says. It's the only way. Dr. Kexthar refuses outright. This is absurd. We haven't even confirmed the nature of this so-called threat. Destroying the ruins would mean destroying invaluable knowledge and resources. We can't make a decision like that based on fear. Cross doesn't flinch. You woke me up to survive. This is how you survive. Before the argument can escalate further, the ship shakes violently. The alarms grow louder as Viren struggles to regain control. Something's breached the outer hull, he shouts. The screens flash red, showing distorted images of something crawling through the vents. It moves unnaturally, too fast to track. Eleanor grabs a weapon from the emergency locker and hands another to Mila. Stay close, she tells her. Mila nods, her face pale but determined. Cross grabs a rifle from the wall, inspecting it with practiced precision. If it's on the ship, containment isn't an option anymore. We'll have to clear it room by room. Dr. Kexthar protests. This is insane. We need to stay together and figure out. A loud crash interrupts him as something tears through the vent in the corner. A creature emerges, twisting and shifting, part flesh, part metal. It lets out a horrifying screech before lunging at the group. Cross reacts instantly, firing several precise shots. The creature collapses, but not before leaving deep gouges in the walls and floor. Its body twitches unerringly, and within moments, it begins to change shape, adapting to the damage it took. "We need to move. Now," Cross orders. Eleanor and Viren drag a stunned Dr. Kexthar out of the room while Cross leads the way. Mila lags behind, watching the creature as it continues to shift, its form becoming stronger, faster, more dangerous. The group retreats to the bridge, sealing the doors behind them. Viren pulls up the ship's internal sensors, which show more creatures moving through the corridors, spreading quickly. "This is what I warned you about," Cross says. "You woke it up. Now we all have to pay the price." The ship feels like a trap. The once quiet corridors now echo with strange noises, metal creaking, distant screeches, and the soft, unsettling sound of something moving. The team is gathered on the bridge, their faces pale as they watch the ship's internal sensors. Red dots, each representing one of the creatures, crawl across the map of the vessel. "They're everywhere," Mila says, her voice trembling. "How are they moving so fast?" Cross looks at the map, his expression grim. "They're not just moving, they're spreading. Every system they touch, they infect. If we don't act now, this ship will be theirs." Viren, hunched over the console, shakes his head. "We can't just blast them out of the vents. Half the systems are already compromised, and if we damage the ship too much, we'll lose life support." Eleanor steps forward, gripping her weapon tightly. "Then what do we do? We can't just sit here and wait for them to tear through the bridge." Cross speaks, with the calm of someone who has faced this before. "We hit them hard and fast. They adapt to what they've seen, so we need to stay unpredictable. But first, we have to cut off their spread. That means isolating the infected areas of the ship." Dr. Kexthar, still shaken from the attack, protests. "You can't be serious. Sealing off parts of the ship will mean losing access to critical systems. We'd be trapping ourselves as much as them." Cross doesn't waver. "It's not about saving the ship anymore. It's about stopping them from getting control. The more ground we lose, the stronger they get." Viren hesitates but nods. He's right. We don't have another option. The team moves into action. Cross takes charge, assigning roles with a confidence that makes it clear he's done this before. Viren begins rerouting power to seal off compromised areas. Mila works on isolating the ship's core systems, trying to protect what little functionality remains. Eleanor and Cross prepare to lead a sweep of the most heavily infested sections. As they leave the bridge, the tension is palpable. The corridors are dark, lit only by flickering emergency lights. The air feels heavier, charged with the strange energy that has been disrupting the ship since the cryopod opened. The first encounter comes quickly. A creature bursts from a vent, its form shifting between metal and flesh, claws glinting in the dim light. Cross reacts instantly, firing a burst of plasma rounds. Eleanor joins in, her shots precise and steady. The creature falls, but its body begins to twitch and change, adapting to the damage. "Keep moving," Cross says, his voice firm. They're learning. As they push deeper into the ship, the creatures become more aggressive. They attack in groups, forcing Cross and Eleanor to fight back to back. Each encounter grows more dangerous, the creatures adapting to their tactics and weaponry. Cross takes the lead, using his knowledge of the parasite to anticipate their moves. But it's clear the creatures are evolving faster than expected. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Mila and Viren are racing against time. Viren struggles to reroute power, cursing under his breath as the creature's energy signature disrupts his work. "There in the systems," he mutters. "Every time I close a door, they find another way in." Mila, her hands shaking, manages to isolate the ship's core systems. I've locked down navigation and communications, she says. At least they can't spread beyond the ship. Viren nods, but his expression remains grim. That's not going to help us if they take over life support. Back in the corridors, Cross and Eleanor reach the heart of the infestation, a heavily damaged section of the ship, where the creatures have clustered. The air is thick with a strange, metallic smell, and the walls pulse faintly, as if alive. Cross surveys the scene, his jaw tightening. This is their hive, he says. They're trying to turn the ship into a breeding ground. Eleanor stares at the writhing mass of creatures ahead of them. How do we stop this? We burn it, Cross replies. He pulls out a device from his belt, a small, powerful explosive. This will collapse the section and cut them off. But it'll leave the ship even more unstable. Eleanor hesitates, but nods. Do it. As Cross sets the charge, the creatures attack. They come from all sides, faster and more coordinated than before. Cross and Eleanor fight desperately, holding them off long enough for the explosive to arm. Just as the swarm begins to overwhelm them, the charge detonates, sending a shockwave through the ship. The creatures are destroyed, but the blast leaves the section in ruins. Cross and Eleanor barely escape, battered and bloodied, but alive. On the bridge, the team feels the impact. The ship groans as structural alarms blare. Viren yells over the noise. What did they do? Mila's console lights up with warnings. The ship's integrity is failing. We've lost 2 sections entirely. Cross and Eleanor return to the bridge, exhausted but determined. Cross looks at the team. That bought us time, but it's not enough. We can't hold this ship forever. Viren stands, his frustration boiling over. You keep saying we need to stop them, but you haven't told us how. What's your real plan? Cross meets his gaze, unflinching. We take the fight to the source. We destroy the ruins. Dr. Kexthar explodes in anger. Destroy the ruins? Do you have any idea what you're suggesting? Those ruins are priceless. They hold knowledge we can't even begin to understand. They hold death, Cross replies coldly. This isn't a debate. If we don't destroy them, everything we've done here will mean nothing. Eleanor backs him up. He's right. If this thing spreads, it won't just be this ship. It'll be every ship, every planet it touches. Viren sighs, his shoulders slumping. Even if we agree, how do we do it? The ship's barely holding together. Cross lays out the plan. They'll use the cryopod's remaining energy to overload the ship's reactor, turning it into a weapon powerful enough to destroy the ruins. It's a desperate move, one that will likely leave them stranded on the planet, but it's their only chance. The team reluctantly agrees. As they prepare for the final assault, the weight of their decision hangs heavy. The creatures are still out there. The ship is falling apart, and time is running out. But Cross is certain of one thing. If they fail, there will be no second chance. The ship trembles under the strain. Emergency lights cast an eerie glow across the bridge as alarms blare relentlessly. The team is gathered, grim and silent, as Commander Cross explains the plan in stark terms. We're out of time. The creatures are inside the systems, and the ship won't hold much longer. If we're going to stop them, we need to act now. The cryopod's energy is our only weapon powerful enough to destroy the ruins and the infestation. Viren shakes his head, his voice tight. Do you even realize what you're asking? Overloading the reactor with that energy could destroy the ship entirely. Cross doesn't flinch. It's a risk we have to take. If we don't, this thing will spread beyond the planet. We'll be responsible for unleashing it on the galaxy. Dr. Kexthar slams his fist on the console. This is madness. We're scientists, not soldiers. We should be studying this, not destroying it. Eleanor steps forward, her voice cutting through the tension. We're out of options, Kexthar. This isn't about science anymore. It's about survival. Mila interrupts, her hands trembling as she points to the monitor. They've breached another section. We're losing containment. Everyone looks at the screen. The red dots marking the creature's movements are spreading, faster, and more coordinated than before. Enough arguing, Cross says. We either do this, or we die here, and we take the galaxy down with us. The plan is set. Viren and Mila work to reconfigure the ship's reactor to channel the energy from the cryopod. It's a delicate process, and one wrong move could trigger the overload prematurely. Cross and Eleanor prepare for the final push to the ruins, knowing the creatures won't let them reach the core without a fight. Cross and Eleanor leave the bridge, armed with everything they can carry. The corridors are in ruins, dark and filled with the low, unsettling hum of the parasite's energy. The creatures are everywhere now, their forms shifting and adapting, becoming more dangerous with each encounter. We'll clear a path to the reactor, Cross says. Viren and Mila stay focused on the systems. If we don't make it back, finish the job. Viren nods reluctantly. Just don't make us finish it without you. As Cross and Eleanor push through the infested sections of the ship, the creatures attack in waves. Their tactics are smarter now, more coordinated, as if they've learned from every previous fight. Cross leads the charge, his movements precise and deliberate, while Eleanor covers their flank, her aim steady despite the chaos. They reach the heart of the infestation, the section closest to the ruins. The walls pulse with a sickly, organic glow, and the air is thick with heat and the stench of decay. The creatures here are larger, more aggressive, and almost completely fused with the ship systems. This is it, Cross says, setting down a small case. He opens it to reveal a portable energy device, one of the few tools powerful enough to sever the creature's connection to the ship, if only temporarily. Cover me, he says to Eleanor. She nods, her grip tightening on her weapon. Cross activates the device. It emits a high-pitched whine, and the creatures react instantly, swarming toward him. Eleanor fires relentlessly, her shots holding them back just long enough for Cross to complete the setup. The device pulses once, sending out a shockwave of energy that disrupts the creature's control over the area. It won't last long, Cross says. Let's move. They reach the reactor room, where the cryopod's energy is already being routed through the systems. Viren's voice crackles over the comms. The connection is holding, but barely. You've got maybe 5 minutes before the overload becomes unstable. Then we'd better finish this fast, Cross replies. Cross begins manually configuring the reactor's controls, his knowledge of the parasite and the pod's energy guiding him through the process. Eleanor keeps watch, her weapon trained on the entrance. The creatures begin to recover from the disruption, their movements growing faster and more aggressive. Viren's voice comes through again, strained. We've got movement near the bridge. Mila and I are locking down what we can, but we're running out of places to hide. Eleanor glances at Cross. We don't have time for this. Can you do it or not? Cross doesn't look up. I can do it, but you're not going to like what comes next. Before she can ask what he means, the creatures attack. The room fills with the sound of gunfire and screeches as Eleanor fights them off. Cross works quickly, his fingers flying across the controls. The reactor hums louder, its energy output spiking as the cryopod's power surges through it. The creatures push closer. Eleanor is forced to retreat to Cross's side, firing wildly as the swarm threatens to overwhelm them. We're running out of time, she shouts. Cross finishes the final sequence and slams the control panel shut. It's done. The overload is set. We've got 2 minutes to get out of here. They turn to run, but the creatures block their path. Cross and Eleanor fight desperately, their weapons running low on ammunition. Just as it seems the swarm will overtake them, Cross grabs Eleanor and shoves her toward the escape hatch. Go, he yells. I'll hold them off. Eleanor hesitates. What are you doing? Cross looks at her, his expression firm. This ship isn't making it out. Someone has to make sure the overload completes. Eleanor shakes her head. No, we'll find another way. There isn't one, Cross says. Get to the bridge. Save whoever you can. Eleanor's face hardens, but she knows he's right. With one last look, she climbs through the hatch, leaving Cross behind. On the bridge, VRN and Mila prepare for the worst. The creatures have breached the outer doors, and the ship's systems are failing one by one. Eleanor bursts in, helping to secure the remaining defenses. "What about Cross?" VRN asks. "He's not coming," Eleanor says quietly. The ship shudders violently as the reactor reaches critical mass. The team braces themselves as a massive explosion rips through the ruins and the ship. The creatures screech in unison before going silent. The energy wave destroys the hive completely, leaving nothing but scorched ground. The survivors barely escape in the emergency pod, watching as the ruins collapse in the distance. The planet is quiet once more, the parasite finally destroyed. Eleanor stares out the viewport, her face grim. "He gave us a chance. We can't waste it." Vierin nods. "Let's hope it was enough." The pod drifts into the dark void of space, the weight of their choices heavy on their minds. The emergency pod floats silently in orbit above the ruined planet. Inside, the survivors, Eleanor Briggs, Vierin, and Mila Ortiz, sit in stunned silence, their faces pale, their bodies bruised but alive. The faint hum of the pod systems is the only sound, a stark contrast to the chaos they just escaped. Eleanor looks out the viewport at the surface below. The ruins are gone, replaced by a massive, smoldering crater. The energy from the reactor's overload wiped out everything in the area, ensuring the parasite could never spread. But the cost was heavy. "Do you think it's really gone?" Mila asks, breaking the silence. Vierin shakes his head slowly. "It has to be. Nothing could have survived that kind of destruction." His voice carries a hint of doubt, but he doesn't press the point. Eleanor stays quiet, her eyes fixed on the planet. Her thoughts drift to Cross, the man who sacrificed everything to ensure their survival. Despite his cold demeanor, his actions spoke of someone who understood the stakes better than anyone. "We couldn't have done this without him," she says softly. Vierin and Mila nod, each lost in their own thoughts. As the pod drifts further from the planet, Mila works to restore the pod's communications. The ship's systems were heavily damaged, and any chance of rescue depends on getting a signal out. "I've got something," Mila says suddenly, her voice tinged with surprise. She taps the console, and a faint transmission comes through, a signal coming from the surface of the planet. "That's impossible," Vierin mutters. "There's nothing left down there." Eleanor leans closer to the console, listening carefully. The transmission is weak, but it's unmistakably human. "This is Commander Adrian Cross. If you're receiving this, the mission is not over." Mila's eyes widen. "It's him. Cross is alive." Vierin stares at the console in disbelief. "How? The reactor should have destroyed everything." Eleanor takes a steadying breath. "If anyone could have survived, it's him." The transmission continues, the static clearing momentarily. Cross's voice is calm, but there's an urgency to his words. "The ruins are gone, and the infestation is contained. But this planet, it's not just a prison. It's a warning. There are others like it." The survivors exchange uneasy glances. Cross's voice grows fainter as the signal begins to fade. "If you leave, tell them. Tell the galaxy. Some things should stay buried." The signal cuts off, leaving the pod in silence once more. Vierin is the first to speak. "Others like it? He can't mean..." Eleanor interrupts. "He means this parasite wasn't the only one. There could be more out there." The weight of the revelation sinks in. The team realizes that while they may have stopped this immediate threat, the galaxy might still be at risk. Cross stayed behind not just to stop the infestation, but to guard against whatever else might lie hidden on the planet. The emergency pod systems finally come online, and Mila sends out a distress signal. They know it could take days, even weeks, for help to arrive, but they also know their fight isn't over. As the pod drifts away from the planet, Eleanor looks out the viewport one last time. The surface is quiet, the destruction absolute. Yet deep down, she can't shake the feeling that Cross's warning was more than just a precaution. It was a certainty. "We'll tell them," she says firmly. "We'll make sure they know." Viren nods, his usual skepticism replaced by determination. "And we'll be ready. Next time we'll be ready." The pod continues its journey, carrying the survivors and the weight of their knowledge into the vast unknown. Behind them, the planet fades into the distance, its secrets buried once again, but its warning echoing across the stars. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, please give this video a like and subscribe for more.